And the whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, and the whole night, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, May 10th, 2020. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host downstairs, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Hey, what's going on, Steve?
Hey, what's going on, Chris? How you doing down there?
Oh, we're still hanging tough. We're keeping our hands washed, and that's why I'm able to touch my face. I just washed my hands.
Hey, hang on a second. Is that Ken Gerhard way down there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's going on, Ken?
What's going on, Ken? So, just for everybody's knowledge, the Facebook chat is now working. Hooray, they got the fix. So.
Good.
So anyway.
Gotta have our Facebook crew. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta click over to the live comments thing so I can see everybody. Hi, everybody.
So we'll do a regular roll call. Hello to Frank.
Frank.
Hello to Thomas.
Thomas.
There's Mick. Ahoy, Mick.
Big Mick.
Hey, Tack made it. Something to squatch about is in the house. David Parker. Hello,
Okay.
David. Good talking
Dave.
to you on the phone this week. Thomas Gardner. Hello, Thomas.
Thomas.
That was me testing the Facebook.
Hello, Steve Tester.
Ben. Hello, Ben.
Ben, welcome.
He was on a couple of weeks ago. Steve, welcome. And Frank says we got coffee. And let's say hi to Jimmy Trick.
Frank, Jimmy.
A.K.A. Whoop, that's
Char.
Mark. What the heck? Everything skipped.
Charlie Wan.
Hello, Mark, over on Twitter. Good to see you again. Suzanne, hello. And
Suzanne, Mark.
Sherry saying hello to Chris.
Hi, Sherry.
So here we are once again. Another great night of show material. Let me just make sure I have the right banner. There we go. There we are. All right. Now we got this thing up and running. And believe it or not, there is some semblance to that picture in the guy that's third down for me. So, and he's got that cantankerous Texas stare on his face right now.
And I know he does. I know for a fact he does wear that hat when he goes to a conference. I've seen him there.
And Ken, do you know? You know Jeffrey Thomas, right? Oh, it'd be help if I unmuted our guest.
Yeah, let's unmute Ken. Need to hear what he's saying.
You do happen to know Jeffrey, don't you?
Of course I know Jeffrey. Yep.
Yeah, well,
Great guy.
Of course, yeah, there he is throwing out the insults.
Oh, no. Lyle Blackburn Jr. Oh.
And a few more coming in.
Actually, Lyle is a year older than me, so.
There you go.
I feel like he's my younger brother, but technically he's a little older than me, not much. But
well, it's all how we act. Keith is in the house. Hello, Keith. And BJ. Good to see you, BJ.
BJ.
So here we are. What a week it's been. Just a little quick roundup. There's been a lot of debate running from debates. Not on my side anyway, but we won't get into that tonight. Unless, of course, you guys egg me on. Hello, Leona. So as the kerfuffle filters in.
Well, I saw something in the news, Steve, and I pulled it up. I couldn't figure out if this was an old story or this was actually fairly recent. But Bigfoot was stolen again. And this time in Worcester, Brimfield, Massachusetts, I think.
Worcester, Mass. Or as they say, Worcester. Worcester. Somebody stole the Bigfoot from Worcester.
Yeah, I think the best I was able to get from the article, I think they did find him and they put him out in the woods like the other one. So these Bigfoot statues are being found in the woods after they've been stolen. So I guess people may be trying to return them to their natural habitat or something. I don't know.
Who knows? But a Worcester Sasquatch belongs near the harbor. That's all I gotta say.
Well, you don't want him to get...
Put the Squatch in the car, and we'll take him down to the harbor.
Yeah.
And then we got to run back to Worcester.
I think it's car. In the car.
In the car.
Car. Yeah, there is no R in car. It's car.
Where's Jonathan Wilk when you need him? Although he does not have a Boston, New England accent. So...
I had a buddy from Long Island, New York, when I was in the military, and we used to make fun of each other. Yeah,
it's Long Island.
Yeah. We used to make fun of each other the way each other talks. He said, "Hey, Chris, you gonna put a radiator in your car?" And of course he would say radiator, and I told him, "Man, it's not radiator. What are you talking about, radiator?"
Well, it's always a radiator. I've never called it a radiator.
Well, I get maybe it's a Long Island thing. I don't know. He said he didn't. He said he didn't have an accent. He said he was, that's the people upstate.
That's right. Well, radiator does not rhyme with gladiator. I'm sorry, it does not. Although it could make complete logical sense that it should, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, our guest tonight is the one, the only Mr. Ken Gerhard. Welcome, Ken, to the show. And is there anything you'd like
to?
Is there anything you'd like to
Happy
promote?
Mother's Day.
That too. That's right. It's Mother's Day. And it's been so long.
Happy
did you get
Mother's
your card?
Day. We love our mothers.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, did you get your card I sent?
Well, I'm a mother. Just to ask certain factions of the. Never mind. You're getting me to go there again, Bennett.
Oh man. But happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. So anyway, we have a great guest on tonight, Ken. Ken, is there anything you'd like to promote or talk about right off the shoot so we get that out there to the people and we'll revisit that later?
Well, I know everyone's going a little stir crazy at this point, and we certainly don't know what the future holds, but I am booked at a few Bigfoot conferences in the coming months. And from what I'm hearing from the promoters, they're going full steam ahead unless, troops come in and shut them down. So that would be the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. That's going to be July 25th. I'm going to be in upstate Michigan at the UP Bigfoot Conference early August. There is the Fouke Monster Festival celebrating the legend of Boggy Creek. That's going to be the August 1st. That's going on. And I'll be at the Hanobi Bigfoot Festival in Oklahoma in October. So, and the Texas Bigfoot Conference in October. So there's, hopefully we'll get some level of normalcy and the Squatchers will come out and, we'll take some extra measures, I guess, when we do these conferences. We'll have to see how that goes, face masks and sanitizer and distancing. But, I enjoy getting together with my colleagues in the Bigfoot field and, meeting my many friends and fans across the country. So.
Chris, take over for a second. Got a little issue, apparently.
I got a question for Ken. Ken, when you were in Fouke, Arkansas, did you have your picture made in that Bigfoot thing where you stick your head through?
No, not that I remember. I may have done it. They drink a lot of moonshine over there in Fouke, so there's some blurry things there, memories that are kind of not. No, I didn't do that. But of course, you always, whenever you go to Fouke, you visit Monster Mart, which is the Icon's convenience store.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering that that Monster Mart you're talking about. That's been shown in a lot of documentaries. That's more of a place where people go to sit, not only to buy something like milk and bread, but they drink coffee and stuff there, don't they?
Yeah, there's some tables and they have, some food options, pizza and coffee. And of course, there's a fabulous gift shop loaded with all kinds of Bigfoot and Fouke Monster memorabilia. So you can stock up on your refrigerator magnets and coffee mugs and T-shirts and,
Now,
of course,
I hope I don't.
Some of Lyle Blackburn's books. Mm-hmm.
Am I blowing your guys' ears out?
I don't have any problem hearing you.
Okay.
It's not over-modulating or anything. You're good.
Because I have one particular person that knows me that keeps saying I'm muffled and stuff like that. I feel like this is way too much volume right now. So
you sound great.
Okay.
Crystal clear.
All right, as long as I'm not blowing everybody's ears out. I went to the Monster Mart, must be in 2006. And they didn't have that much Bigfoot memorabilia back then. Is that something rather recent? Yeah.
Yeah, in the recent years, the new owner has really embraced the legend. And of course, you have the reissue, digitally remastered version of Legend of Boggy Creek. And Pamela Pierce, Charles Pierce's daughter, has really been promoting that. So everyone in the town kind of works together. And that's why they started doing the festival again. And so they're definitely trying to, Fouke's a tiny town. And I guess they probably appreciate any tourist industry that they can get in there once a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's the Monster Mart's growing up. There's definitely a lot more to choose from now as far as Bigfoot related stuff. Swag. Mm-hmm.
Swag. Yeah, I remember my
stop there, man.
I remember my experience going into that place, and at the time there was a drought going on, and I remember them saying, very clearly, well, it's been very dry out here. And we don't really see too many of them during the dry season. Just as so matter-of-factly, I was like, really? So that was kind of cool. But hang on a second. I still got some adjustments I got to make here. So carry on, Chris.
That's one of my bucket list things. I want to stop in Fouke, Arkansas. I actually drove through there. Gosh, I don't know, maybe about 1999 or early 2000, but it was like 2 a.m. when it went through, so I couldn't stop. Well, I could have stopped, but I wouldn't have seen anything. But that's one of my stops I want to make. I'd also like to get out there to Buck Creek out there in Northern California. Have you ever been out there to the Patterson-Gimlin film site yet, Ken? No,
I have not. No, it's at the top of my bucket list. I just haven't had a chance to get out to to that spot.
Yeah, that's me, man. I want to go there. I mean, I don't think there's a chance in the world that one of Patty's relatives is going to jump out and say boo. But I'd like to go there when yeah, I like to go there so I can see where it all happened, because man, that film is iconic, you know. And
it is.
As a Bigfooter, it's kind of like the holy grail of places to visit.
Sure.
Guys, I'm sorry. Give me 2 seconds. I've got a pet emergency over here. Hold on.
Okay, no problem.
Go ahead, man.
So
yeah, I tell you, my wife's little dog Zoe, she runs around my feet in here sometimes during the show, and I kind of worry whether she'll start biting or barking.
Yeah, yep, exactly. A few other. Hey, got a quick question for you. Nani is in the house. We're gonna get Ken back off of mute.
Hi, Nani.
Nani's in the house, and is this guy any relation to you? We have a Mike Bennett.
Hey, Mike. I don't know. It's possible. Like that last name, man.
And Ben said you said bucket list, not.
Yeah. Yeah, bucket list. Everybody needs a bucket list, believe me, because life is short, man. You want to get this stuff done before you become old and decrepit, or before you go under the ground. So.
Or the Falcon list. So, yes, our guy's got a lot of sense of humor out there. So let's get into this, Ken. Let's start on the Bigfoot. We'll cross over to the other stuff a little bit down the road. But I know Lyle is really the Falk monster guy, but you've had a lot of experiences and a lot of stuff down there as well. What's your take on the whole Falk monster, from the film to the history of it?
Well, I will say this. Lyle's taken me out along Boggy Creek at night and doing some research, and that is hands down, and I've traveled all over North America, and I've visited some pretty amazing places, but hands down, it's the spookiest. Walking that creek at night, it's just like a set out of a monster movie or something. It's, it's hard to describe, but it's like the mist shrouded forest with the real winding little creek we didn't really experience. Well, I'll take that back. We didn't experience anything really dramatic there, but we did use a call blaster. I don't do the calling myself. I like to broadcast calls. I'm not a good caller, but we were broadcasting a series of animal calls with no results, different predator type calls, like distressed animal calls and things. But then I finally decided to dial up a African hyena mix, which I had downloaded onto my Fox Pro call blaster. And so I started blasting these hyenas, like laughing and yipping. And just then something huge just took off through the brush. Could have been a pig or something, but whatever it was, didn't mind any of the other animal noises. But then when we put those hyena sounds out there, it really freaked out. So the lesson to be learned there is for researchers that like to think outside the box. Try different things when you're out there. Don't stick to the usual, for example, if you're doing animal calls, you wouldn't use the sounds endemic to that area. Try something that's not from that area, that nothing's ever heard, that nothing in those woods has ever heard before. And, maybe you'll get an interesting result. But sorry to ramble there. Falk monster is absolutely a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. I mean, the descriptions are consistent within that. I think a lot has been made out of the alleged hyper aggression of the Falk monster, but that's just based on the Bobby Ford incident sighting of May 72, when, a guy basically ran into a Bigfoot when he was out in his yard trying to chase it off with a gun. And I don't think it was like deliberately hunting him or stalking him. And of course, the movie adds a lot of that kind of, vibe to it, because if you watch The Legend of Boggy Creek, great movie still, very spooky for its time. And the monster is kind of portrayed as this kind of tragic figure that, is kind of malevolent against humanity just because it's so angry and hateful, but I think a lot of that is the drama of the movie. I think like any Sasquatch, it's just out there. It's a great habitat. There's a lot of habitat out there. And I've also done some investigation at Caddo Lake, which is, the Caddo creature, which is very similar to Fouke Monster. I interviewed several witnesses out there that were very credible. And then we've also done some research at a place called Monster Central, which is kind of down south of Fouke in Louisiana, kind of made famous by that TV show Killing Bigfoot. And I've been out to that location as well, and I heard, some vocalizations out there, mostly like the whooping sounds and some grunting type noises and things like that. So it's a good area in terms of vocalization. So that whole area, that whole region from southeast Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas, northeast Texas, and of course northwest Louisiana, that kind of area is a real hot spot of Bigfoot activity in terms of the south central United States, I think.
Gotcha.
I don't know why that is, but it seems to be.
Yeah, well, it's to me, it's always been that perfect combination of terrain and source. I mean, there's water down there, there's forest down there, there's food down there. So what more could a creature ask for? Yep.
Thick brush, very difficult to travel through the brush sometimes.
We do have a question from Facebook, from Joe Critelli. He enjoyed the special that you did on the Minnesota Iceman. And what's your opinion on its origin, since there were 3 alleged stories? Sorry, off topic, but just watched this the other day. No, it's not off topic. Our guest is here.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota Iceman is kind of, an epic saga in the whole Bigfoot world. I know that the vast majority of people and researchers probably view the Minnesota Iceman as a hoax at this point. I mean, there is absolutely a latex Iceman that's being presented at exhibited at Museum of the Weird in Austin as we speak. Yeah. Well, I don't know if we speak, they should have for a while. You know what I'm saying? So that, that's true. There is a manufactured, fabricated Iceman. Okay. So I guess the question comes down to that theory about whether there were 2 Icemen and there was a switch that was done at some point, and of course that whole story is based on the testimony and the publications of Ivan Sanderson, Bernard Heuvelmans, primarily the pioneers of cryptozoology, as well as Terry Cullen, who was a veterinary student who saw it, some other people at that time. More evidence, I think, has come out in recent years that kind of is leaning more towards the hoax possibility. And, if you checked out recent issues of Bigfoot Times and certain Facebook groups where they've discussed this. So it seems to be, there's no doubt Frank Hansen, the guy that owned the Minnesota Iceman, was somewhat of a shady character, changed his stories a lot. So there's just a lot of, gray area and sort of a lot of troubling aspects to that story. Now, that said, what I will say is that for the Minnesota Iceman episode that we filmed last year, In Search of Monsters, on Travel Channel, we did basically melt the Iceman down, the latex version, as much as possible. And I thoroughly examined it and took a lot of measurements and, noted a lot of physical characteristics. Now, what I did was I had made an extensive list of physical descriptions and measurements that had been documented by Heuvelmans, Sanderson, and Terry Cullen. So I had a working list of this is what they described in 1969. So we did a comparison in terms of all the measurements that were listed, the physical descriptions of all the body parts compared to what is on display in Austin. And what's interesting is that we did find some notable differences in terms of some of the measurements and some of the things that were described. There were also things that were identical, that seemed like the nose, the pug nose, and different things like that. But, the most striking thing was the dentition. And I guess that's the main point I wanted to make. And I don't know if they made it well enough in that TV episode, but the Minnesota Iceman that's on display in Austin, and it's the same one that I saw when I was a kid in 1976 at the Minnesota State Fair. It's identical, has a big row of teeth, big square teeth. And it's got this kind of grimace on its face where it's showing you this toothy grin. Yeah. Very scary and disturbing. Now, compare and contrast that to what was documented by Heuvelmans and Sanderson in their photographs and separate publications, papers on the subject. They described what they saw and examined for 3 days on Frank Hansen's property, that its mouth was almost closed and they could only see 2 teeth. So that the importance of that is, latex, to my understanding, and I'm not a latex expert, but the people that I've talked to that deal with models and things like that, fabrications, you can't change the shape of the mouth easily. So if something was created from a mold and it had a certain type of mouth or dentition, it would be almost impossible to then alter that later on.
Right.
So bottom line is that there were either 2 versions of the Minnesota Iceman, and then that opens up the whole debate about whether there were 2 latex versions of the Iceman or if one was actually flesh and blood. And then, then the other side of the argument that the skeptics are going to, argue that, well, Heuvelmans and Sanderson just weren't that reliable in terms of the information, the data that they were collecting, and were prone to embellish things and, maybe had some bias. So, in my mind, at least, there's a little bit of a question there and a mystery involved as far as whether the original Minnesota Iceman was an authentic flesh and blood hominid of some kind.
Right.
The last thing I'll say about it, I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of going off all these different tangents, but
go ahead.
The one troubling aspect of the Minnesota Iceman, and Dr. John Napier wrote about this in his excellent Bigfoot book back in the early 70s, is that the physical description, the physical traits of the Minnesota Iceman don't match anything we know of in the fossil history as far as pre-hominids. And it doesn't really match descriptions of Bigfoots or Sasquatches that necessarily that well either. So what was it? If it was real, what was it? And of course, in my book, Menagerie of Mysterious Beasts, much like Bernard Heuvelmans, I tried to draw a comparison to some of the Asian wild men, like the Chinese Yeren and the Vietnamese Goi Rung and some of those other, because it does seem to match those more than the North American Bigfoot or Sasquatch as far as the physical description, size, and so forth.
Right. But
So
Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, buddy, but didn't Ivan T. Sanderson examine it through the ice?
Yeah, they had to examine it. Frank Hansen did not want to thaw it out, so they had to examine it through ice and opaque ice. It was kind of cloudy and not real visible, and also glass. And then the story is that the glass actually shattered. The glass over the top of the ice in this glass coffin sarcophagus shattered when they put a heavy light. Because think about it, they're in a real cramped little trailer, the back of this trailer truck, and they're trying to get pictures of it and climbing over it, and they put a lamp right on the glass and it cracked. And according to both Sanderson and Heuvelmans, they could then smell decaying flesh coming up through the cracks in the ice and the glass.
Yeah.
But boy, God, that sounds awfully familiar, though. That sounds awfully familiar because I go back to 2006 or 2008 with the Bigfoot Body Hoax. There was animal parts stuffed in it, and yes, you could smell animal decay, but it did not matter. So who knows? And there was. I just want to go over a couple of things. David Winter said he thought it was real, but later pics weren't. He saw it in 1973. Joe Curtilli asked, the original had no teeth showing. I think you covered that. The mouth was closed. David goes back to say that the one he had seen had some blood in the ice. I don't know if Sanderson and Heuvelmans noted that.
Yep. And then, so Heuvelmans thought that it had been shot in the head. He said one of the eyes was blown out. The other eye was maybe sitting on the cheek. So both of its eyes were blown out. And he also wrote about a puddle of blood behind its head.
Yep. And Ben Radford also says, of course, it's hard to compare since the original was only seen and described through thick ice. So,
that was my
that's
thing.
true.
Yeah.
Now, is there any evidence in the record from Heuvelmans or Sanderson that Ivan Marks shot the Bigfoot? Just an off-the-wall question. It's kind of relevant these days.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't recall Ivan marks ever coming up anywhere in the Minnesota Iceman discussion.
I did not think so. and there's a reason why I wanted to put that out there, because there's a certain researcher that's now saying that Ivan Marks shot the Minnesota Iceman. Anyway, yeah. So
that's the world we're living in, right?
I just wanted to make sure there was no mention of Ivan Marks anywhere in this history, which there's not.
Never come across any mention of Ivan Marks in that.
That's what I thought.
Maybe they got their Ivans mixed up. Maybe.
I have a suspicion that may be true, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be a video explaining that too.
Well, one last point on the people that that speculate that there were two latex Icemen and that Hansen just swapped those two out interchangeably. This is just my own opinion, but based on the research I've done, it was friggin' expensive to have that thing made. I mean, he had like this thing molded by a Hollywood special effects expert. Then it was sent to Mexico where they individually placed each hair. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. I just, if that's my reason why I would say I'm skeptical about Hansen having made two different latex versions, because he wasn't a rich man. And I think he spent a fortune having at least one latex version made. And maybe it is, maybe there is only one, you know, but I don't think he would have had two made.
Well, where the thing is, where the Iceman is at now, Kent, have you been to the Museum of the Weird to see it again, right?
Yeah, it's owned by a friend of mine.
Okay. Did you notice any sort of odor from it now?
No.
Okay.
Did you happen to
That's
notice?
one of the things we did. When we melted the ice down, we stuck our faces on it and tried to smell anything that would smell bad or rotten. That was the very first thing we did.
Were there any bullet holes, any wounds that you noticed?
No, and it had both of its eyes as well. Okay. So that's another contrast between what Heuvelmans and Sanderson described in photographs. This thing has both of its eyes.
So it almost sounds to me one of a couple of scenarios could have happened here, and what I'm thinking is, okay, so we have one that may have been real, or may have been a manufactured suit, you know, the original. Yeah. And it sounds like to me that this second one is a much cheaper version of it. Would that be a fair assessment? I'm sorry, you think the second theory in terms of I think that a second suit was made, but it was made like a lot cheaper than the first one.
Yeah. That's true. And you know, the other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I think the first one, if it's a suit, I think the other one, the first one was probably made with some animal parts. And I think that's why eventually it got discharged or dismissed, and the cheaper one was made because it probably got to the point where, you know, it began to really become decrepit. So that's my thoughts on the process. That's a strong suggestion. And of course, I would prefer that over the other suggestion, which is that Heuvelmans and Sanderson, frankly, were either overzealous or just misinterpreted what they were seeing. Right. And, you know, and I say that because, you know, obviously those are two of the pioneers of my field. So, you know, you wouldn't want to admit that two zoologists like that could be so wrong, but, you know, it's possible. We just don't know.
Well, I mean, you can't really expect their measurements and description to be 100% too, because they're looking through cloudy ice, you know, so they're nothing against them. I'm sure they were doing the best they could with what they had, you know, available. Right. But, you know, it did, I did see it when I was a kid, and it's kind of stinky, but it was a fishy odor. Now, I had read, it's over on the Skeptics forum. There's a thread over there. I'm not sure if it's the Minnesota Iceman thread or a Bigfoot thread, but anyway, they were talking about it, and somebody posted some back and forth between some of the inside guys, and the display was supposedly contained dog flesh to get that rotting animal smell. But to me, I didn't think it smelled like a normal dead animal. It smelled like a fish. Well,
truthfully, Chris, when that body came up, I think the reason why it smells like fish a lot of times is because it's rotting in water. And I think that's what brings on that smell, because I distinctly remember the Dyer freezer and the smell coming off of that.
Right.
It was rot, but it didn't smell like rot you would find in the forest or in a house like I had when I was a medic. It smelled like rotting seafood because it's in water.
Okay.
So and it's probably got water lodge, and some of that smell is actually the water that's mixing that decay in it.
Yeah,
So,
or maybe some of the components of the enclosure that were, who knows? I mean, it was old. If you had it for a long time and he was putting water in it, like you said.
Yeah, because David said his was in a huge fish aquarium. So, that may be some of where the smell is coming from as well. This is awesome. So where did Frank say he got the body from? Did he ever say?
Well, he had 4 different stories, which is one of the reasons that it was, kind of problematic. The very first thing he ever stated was that he was found, it was called the Sibirskoye creature, and that Sibirskoye is a sea kind of up near Siberia in the ocean, and that it was fished out of the ocean, and it was already frozen in this block of ice, and it was fished out of the ocean by these Russian seal hunters. Then later on, he said that it was fished out, or it was Japanese whalers at one point, and I forget the third one at the top, but ultimately it ended up, whoever fished it out of the ocean, supposedly it ended up at a warehouse in Hong Kong, and that's where it was seen by a mysterious Hollywood millionaire who knew that it was an unusual thing, and he bought it and smuggled it back into the country. So that was the very first. The very first story was that it was smuggled out from Hong Kong into the United States. And that before that, it was fished out of the ocean, either by Japanese, Chinese, Russian fishermen or hunters, whale hunters. And then later on, Hansen wrote an article, I don't remember which magazine it was, Argosy or some magazine. He wrote an article that he had actually shot it when he was hunting in the North Woods of Minnesota.
Yeah, now
and that
number
story
2
is highly sensational, because he says when he first came up on it, he said there were 3 of the creatures, and they were hovered over this deer carcass, and they were ripping out its entrails and eating its entrails like zombies, which is a pretty weird story. And that he shot one of them and the other 2 ran off into the woods. And of course, there was also a story of a woman that came forward and claimed that she had shot it, that it had sexually assaulted her in the woods, and then afterwards she shot it. So there were several different stories, which I guess is one of the big red herrings in terms of the Iceman, because we don't have one consistent narrative.
The one I saw, it was found floating in a block of ice off the coast of Siberia.
Okay, so you got the Russian story.
Okay, I got
yeah, that was the first one. That was the first one.
Well, dos vidania, everybody. Get the Squatch out of water into Gulag. Get Squatch into Gulag now.
Yeah. One of the signs on the original display.
Now,
Sibirskoye is a word that they put on the exhibit. Yeah.
Was there a story of him shooting it in Vietnam while deployed?
Well, that was Bernard Heuvelmann's theory. Okay. Heuvelmann's wrote a book about the whole thing, and he it's true that Hansen was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War. So he kind of connected the dots on his own mind, but he thought that maybe Hansen had somehow that this was one of those quote unquote rock apes, Goy Rung creatures that was shot by soldiers or something.
Yeah.
And that Hansen figured out a way to smuggle it back in a body bag and then went to work with it, charging people to look at it.
Sounds pretty far-fetched, though, because he was a pilot. I mean, his AOA didn't put him on the ground in the middle of the jungle, which is kind of a strange, really, theory to me.
And Hansen never claimed that either. He never claimed it came from, as far as I know, he never claimed he got it from Vietnam.
Yeah.
No, that was all Heuvelmann's that advocated that theory.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay. And Joe Criselli just said the infamous rock apes. Yeah. So, can you elaborate a little bit on the story of the rock apes? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, the rock apes, there were essentially several Vietnam veterans that came forward in recent years that claimed that while they were on jungle patrols in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, that they would sometimes have rocks hurled at them. Sound familiar? And then occasionally they would see these creatures that they just thought were indigenous apes, and they were, not as big as a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, maybe 5 to 6 feet tall, but basically ape-like and also somewhat man-like in some stories because they would stand on their hind legs bipedally. And that sometimes when they were going through the jungle, they would come across these rock apes that were highly aggressive towards them and throwing rocks, and they were freaked out and just generally didn't like these creatures. And then there were, of course, other stories of sometimes these rock apes would get caught in the middle of a firefight, between the Viet Cong and the Americans, and then they'd get killed that way, and they'd have a body. And I mean, you can go back even farther in terms of Vietnam. Even before the Vietnam War, there were stories of the Goi Rung, which were called, that's Vietnamese for forest people. And they were basically described as kind of these hairy man-like creatures that lived deep in the jungle. And there were expeditions mounted actually before the Vietnam War of Vietnamese people scientists going out looking for the remains of one of these creatures. So like China and most of Indochina, Vietnam has a long history of hairy hominid type creatures. And I guess rock apes is the term that the American soldiers, the GIs, gave them. But the local name is Goi Rung.
Goi Rung. I don't know if you've heard about a year or so ago, we did a show when we were doing the radio show, we were doing a show, and Chris, I don't know if you remember this, with Ray Sheasley, who was a Army Ranger medic who was in who was in Colombia in operations against FARC, and his squad actually had a Mapinguari experience.
Mapinguari, yeah.
Yep. So, and he also got stranded for 22 days in the forest by himself, and that in itself was a story. But if you get a chance to listen, and he might be willing to kind of tell you his story too. If you're interested, I'll put you in contact with him. Great, interesting story of a ranger that did that. So that was amazing. That's why
I have been in contact with him.
Okay, excellent, good.
Great guy.
And one thing I brought up and I know it's been years and years, but what I suggested is that he track down some of the other soldiers that were there and have them give testimonials separately, not to question his credibility, but wouldn't that elevate that entire incident to another level if suddenly he had some of his colleagues that were on patrol with him backing up that story 100%? That would be a pretty monumental
I agree with
encounter.
That 100%. It's not even, and that's what I tell a lot of witnesses too, is this stuff that I ask for a lot of times. Well, yes, part of it's a debunking thing, but if they can provide that information for me, it adds to their story. Like I remember,
it elevates the whole thing to another level.
I remember interviewing this girl, Sue, who at the time was like 6 or 7 when she had her encounter with a smaller Sasquatch, a juvenile Sasquatch, throwing rocks at her, and she was blaming her brother. And then when she saw it, she ran to the house and told her mother and was all upset. Well, I got a chance to interview with her mother too, and she remembers it like yesterday that she came in and all. So that kind of helps that story along. And she also took a lie detector and passed too. So, yeah. So
you know what, John Green? Sorry, just want to interject one thing. Everyone, if your listeners didn't know this, John Green, the great John Green, Sasquatch Apes Among Us, when he first got into the field in 1957, he went and interviewed people like William Rowe and Albert Ostman and the Chapman family at Ruby Creek. He had them all sign sworn affidavits before a magistrate. Right. I know that seems like a pretty dramatic extent, but you don't hear about that happening obviously in this day and age. But I wonder if any Bigfoot eyewitness out there would be willing to, and I guess I'm kind of throwing the gauntlet down like a challenge, have a sworn oath before a magistrate or a judge about your encounter. And I think again that would lift it at least to I think a slightly different level. It's a shame that people don't pursue that more these days.
Well, here's the beautiful thing about that is that I am not only am I a private investigator, but I'm also a notary public, which makes me an officer of the state of New York. Mm-hmm. So that means anytime I take a statement from somebody, I can turn it into a sworn affidavit.
Very cool.
So that's the one cool thing.
We need more of those.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes it court official. If I ever went to court, that would be, you're swearing in front of an officer of the state of New York, and or whatever state you're from, where you get your notary from. So it's really, really not a bad thing to have. Because truthfully, if they lie about it and down the road it becomes out a lie, it actually becomes a crime that they gave that statement, and they could be charged with perjury. So yeah, and that's also a pretty good CYA for researchers also. So I'm just scrolling through the comments here, and
a lot of interesting comments going on. We Ken, we got the best listeners. I mean, these guys are sharp.
There's Nick.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, the Canadian Force in the 80s, one of the sergeant majors that I worked for, served in Vietnam with U.S. forces, talked about rock apes. Never knew how true it was, but ...
Wow.
And that's
Cool.
also a good name for a band.
The Rock Apes.
The Rock Apes.
I had read a report or a story, and I don't remember where it was at, whether it was on the internet or in a book. But this person told a story about these the rock apes that the military had captured, and they were in chains, and they brought them through, and they sat down, and they served them tea. They could understand English, but they couldn't speak it, I think it was, or they could understand their language. I don't think they were speaking English, you know what I mean? But they could understand human speech, but they weren't speaking. But to them, they said that left them the impression it looked like hairy humans, which that would be like somebody maybe suffering from, hypertrichinosis?
Was Dr. Matt Johnson there too at the table? Just checking.
Guys, speaking of that, I got to give you one of the funniest Bigfoot stories.
Sure.
Is similar to that. And this is with regard to the Chinese version, the Yeren.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an account out there that similar to what you're saying, that there were these Chinese workers, railroad workers or something, and they were done for the day, and they were basically had made a bonfire, and they were all sitting around this bonfire in this wilderness area. And that one of these Yeren creatures came out of the woods and sat down next to them, next to the fire, and was just sitting there, and they were all kind of like nudging each other in the shoulder, like, what do we do? So they all just kind of played it off. They played it off and ignored it, like, oh yeah, that's cool, man. Just sit down. It's so I don't know. It's one of those stories you don't know how much truth there is to it. But to me, I think that's pretty hilarious that a Bigfoot would come sit by the fire and everyone's just kind of like trying to play cool and I don't know, it's all good, man. It's whatever. Don't kill us,
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how I would feel about that.
Well, they didn't understand what the Bigfoot was saying, but he was saying puff puff pass.
That is interesting. Out camping in the woods and then making a fire, and here comes Bigfoot and has a seat. Hey, doing, bud?
All we need is another Beckford story of a Bigfoot in a shirt and tattered pants.
Oh yeah.
Oh. So anything recent coming down the pipe about Bigfoot in the areas that you live in or research in, Ken?
Man, shamefully I have to admit, well, for obvious reasons, I haven't been out in the field much this year, but even before that. But you guys know I investigate a variety of different cryptids, so I try to stay tapped into the Bigfoot pipeline as much as possible. But I'm constantly investigating, Thunderbirds and Black Panthers and lake monsters. But in terms of Bigfoot activity and sightings, I can't really think of anything in the past year or two that's really caught my attention. There's, I know a lot of people that are active and go out in groups, and they send me pictures of things they found or heard, and as always, some of it's intriguing. So, but there hasn't really been any like definitive seminal event in terms of a footprints being found or a really, really good sighting. So. At least not in this part of the country that I'm aware of. But, like I said, they're out there in certain areas, particularly in the bottomlands. There's plenty of habitat for them. So,
right.
So, yeah. Well,
I've got a question I'd like to get into with Ken. I mean, Ken is an accomplished writer, and for all those people out there that might be struggling with trying to write their own book, you know, whatever the subject, Ken, do you have any advice for people that are trying to break through as a writer? I mean,
well, it's tough, and you know, I've only written about 5 books at this point, working on my 6th. We were talking before the show. I have my best friend is Nick Redfern, who's written about 40 plus books on not just cryptozoology, but he also writes about UFOs and conspiracies and stuff. But he's a best-selling author, really amazing writer. And he once told me that, you know, and he's a writer full time, which I think a lot of people would aspire to do, but it's all about discipline. And so the way he put it to me was that being a writer is just like any other job, whether you're working in construction or at a restaurant or in a cubicle. And it's like, he wakes up every day, clocks in at 8 o'clock in the morning, sits down at his computer and writes for 8 hours. And then he clocks out at 5 or 6 and he takes the rest of the night off. And he does that every day. And, you know, if people can train themselves to have that kind of discipline, and not sort of psych yourself out by thinking, oh, I've got writer's block and I just can't focus. And it's like, you know, you think about it, this is my job. I have to live to, you know, to survive. This is what I have to do. And, you know, I have to admit that I'm not always capable of doing that either. I've been pretty disciplined in recent weeks working on my new book for obvious reasons. There's not a lot else I can work on, you know, so but it does, you know, it can be a burnout situation. But I always start every book by doing an outline first and, you know, kind of breaking my messages or information into chapters and sections and, you know, sub details. So I have a working outline to go by. It's similar to when I used to record music and write and record and produce music for many years. And, you know, you don't want to burn out on a song or get uninspired. So what I would do back then is I would have a song that I was working on and I just, you know, take a break and then come back and try to listen to it at different volumes or with different sets of headphones versus speakers versus headphones. Well, it's similar when you're writing. It's good to have try to keep your perspective fresh. So as silly as it sounds, you're writing at your computer over here at your desk, move your computer to a different part of the room and start working on it in a different part of the room. Or change the size of the document. So instead of 100%, it's 120 or it's 80. And, you know, just trying to find tricky ways to make your perspective a little bit fresher so that you don't burn out on it. So that every time, you know, you get up, you walk around the room, walk around the block, come back in, you feel like you're looking at it with a slightly fresher set of eyes. And now that might be easier said than done, but you know, that's what I would recommend to people is just try to find ways to make it a dynamic thing to where it's you're changing your environment, you're changing your perspective and things like that. But the more important thing is what Nick said, which is just do it. Don't talk about it. Don't plan it, you know, just sit down and try to write as much as you can and just try to be disciplined.
Exactly. So Mick had probably one of the prerequisites for writing a book. Best advice for anyone who wants to write a book: learn how to read first. There are some books that I've read out there that were, you know, oh, I just released my book today, 26 pages. What?
This brings up a point I'd like to talk about, which when you invited me to do the show, Steve, we were talking about journalistic integrity in books.
Yes.
You know, I've been into, like many of your listeners, like you guys, I've been into Bigfoot since I was a little kid. I read books starting in the, you know, 30, 40 years ago and up until today. Going back and revisiting some of those books now that I've been in the field for 30 or 40 years and done extensive research, you begin to find mistakes. And you go back and you look in certain books and you find that the dates are wrong, the names are spelled wrong, and things are, for whatever reason, they were put into a book format into posterity as incorrect information. And that becomes very problematic for people that say that's one of their main go-to books, or that's their, you know, a book that heavily influenced them, and they've got a certain thing stuck in their head and it's incorrect. It's not factual. It's not accurate. And I think that we have, those of us that are in the Bigfoot field or investigating anything from cryptozoology to the paranormal to UFOs, we are, under we are being extremely scrutinized by the general public, 80% of the population that thinks we're nuts. And it's very important to us, this is just my opinion, it's very important for us to maintain the highest level of integrity and accuracy in the information that we're presenting at all times. It has to be consistent, it has to be accurate. And so that's kind of my call to arms to your listeners out there, particularly those who are investigators and researchers, is, cross-reference things, make sure you're getting your information from multiple sources.
Yep.
And try to emphasize the accuracy, just like you're in school and you're taking a history class and you have to know the exact names and dates and places where things happened. I think it's very important for us to have very accurate information when referring to, say, iconic incidents and things like that. And the last thing I want to say is that, and this is kind of tailing onto what Steve was saying, and not trying to rag on any writers out there, but it seems like with every cryptid, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Yeti, whatever, there's maybe half dozen to a dozen books that are the go-to books that are recognized as the Bibles of that particular cryptid. And then it seems like there's, on top of that, there are dozens or maybe even 100 books that are written by authors that are basically just borrowing information from those sources and then representing it, and sometimes they do a good job with it, but sometimes the facts, for whatever reason, they get altered, the dates, the names, the spellings, and that kind of stuff bothers me. I'd like to see a higher level of consistency and integrity with regard to how the vital facts and details of our field are kept intact.
It's amazing. And I know one book in particular was held in very high regards, at least 20 years ago, the Bigfoot case book. And I remember reading in it, if I recall, the Brian Goslin incident. And it said, an on-duty officer, witnessed, he wasn't on duty. And when Mysterious Encounters recreated it and Monster Quest recreated it, they had him coming out of a patrol car, and that did not happen. And that's a real big sticking point with Brian himself. Right. He gets very angry over that. That's wrong. And the funny thing is,
there's a perfect example.
Yeah, and I'll give you another great example too. And if anybody is on the paranormal side of things, I run a paranormal group too, and have been a paranormal researcher since 2010. And one of the things I came across was, I saw this book. I'm like, I started flipping through it, and they had a story about the Conjuring case, the Conjuring House case, which was featured in the movie The Conjuring. And we know there was a lot of Hollywood involved with that. I've talked to the folks involved with it, the direct relatives of the Warrens, and they said no, that's it's Hollywood, and a lot of it's added on. And last year I got the opportunity to meet Andrea Perrone herself and her father. So I got the true story behind some of the things. I got the opportunity to actually walk through the house with the Perrones, which was really cool. But one of the things that I picked this book up, I open it up, and it says Annabelle. And okay, everybody knows Annabelle, the case of Annabelle. This was this doll that was supposedly possessed and whatever. It belonged to some nurses, and the Warrens got involved with that, yada, yada, yada. Well, the book said that the Perrones had owned Annabelle, which was completely wrong, completely 1,000% wrong. And when I see that thing, I was like, oh, boom, back on the bookshelf it went. So, well, it was an interesting book up until that point. How much more of this is inaccurate? And that's the unfortunate thing. Kenny Irish, who's on right now, says, who's an author? Self-publishing nowadays has no accountability. It's easy to write a manuscript, have one's friends say it's good, and upload it on Amazon. Agreed. And that's why I work on my books, so hard to cross-reference as much as I can, cite sources and stuff like that. That's what you need to do. If you're going to write a book, do that. You got to, and just don't take it from one source. I don't necessarily take it unless the person was there. Like if I'm reading a book by John Green and he's saying in one of his books, this is what happened, I don't need to cross-reference that because that's coming direct source. But if you're reading somebody about John Green doing something, you better cross-check it to make sure that that's accurate. All right. That's probably the easiest formula I have, unless you're taking it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
I was just also going to say, obviously get an editor and get a proofreader. And that's what I do for my books now. I self-published my most recent book, my Bigfoot book, and I had an editor. And part of her job was to go through and fact check, make sure I have the name spelled right, do some cross-checking on some of my research. And I also had a very good proofreader, and that was his job too. So, that would be another word of advice to authors out there is if you want your book to be really credible, let other people put their eyes. Oh, sorry.
Whoops.
Getting a little too animated. Let other people.
We've lost the picture. Oh, there we are. Oh, there you are. Oh, you're sideways.
Are we? Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Sorry.
You're fine.
My heads are too short.
Oh, jeez.
My headphones are too short, and I pulled away too fast. Hold on.
It's a good thing you didn't have to sneeze.
All right.
Well, some of the things that I remember reading in the books from the 60s and the 70s, it seems like they were a collection of the classic sightings. And I swear you could go open two books, and compare them side by side and read about the Albert Ostman. And it's like almost word for word. It's like they took from another book and put right in their book. And, the collection, after you read the first one, you've read the Albert Ostman account and, oh gosh.
I hope he didn't break his phone.
Uh-oh.
No, it's...
And
there you
story,
are.
there you are. Yeah, the Ape Canyon story, you're fine, man. Just do what you got to do. The Ape Canyon story and Albert Ostman. What are some of the other classics, Steve?
The Bauman case from
the Bauman,
Wildersham.
All those are covered over and over and over.
Mullicat Harry. The
Jacko.
What's that incident that happened up in Canada with the family?
Yeah.
Ruby Creek.
Yeah, the Ruby Creek incident.
Yeah. Ruby Creek incident.
Ape Canyon, we've talked about, and that's another thing is, and I've seen this repeated on shows. Ape Canyon was named after the Ape Canyon attack. No, it was named Ape Canyon long before the Ape Canyon attack. It was named Ape Canyon after a collective of like a Boy Scout troop. They were a group of campers that it was similar to the Boy Scouts. They were a club, and they used to call themselves the St. Helens Apes. And they used to do a lot of climbing, and they discovered Ape Cave, and that's how Ape Canyon got the name off of that. So it had nothing to do.
I have basically put Ape Canyon out of my head because I was so disappointed after doing some research on it. The guy that reported the story about Ape Canyon, he wrote a book, and there's some passages there's some passages in that about how they followed a fiery arrow because they were looking for gold, and it was some sort of magical Indian arrow. And after I was reading all this mystical, spiritual stuff, I was like, I don't know, dude. This is like one of those guys that says, Bigfoot abducted him from the UFO.
Yep.
You're talking about Fred Beck.
Yep.
Fred Beck wrote a book called I Shot the Apes. He was pretty woo when he wrote his book. But if you guys are familiar with Mark Marcel, I mean, he's been writing a book about, and he's really done a great job of, perfect example of someone that found the true story, and the true facts, and spent a lot of time trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. So
it was Fred Beck. Thank you, Ken. That's right. I basically put that story out of my head because after reading this account from Fred Beck, I was like, oh man, dude.
So Lyle Blackburn made a comment in Facebook. I just want to read it because I know our YouTubers can't see it, and I don't want to. It's too long of a message really to put up on the screen. But it says, in keeping with Ken's point about incorrect info in books, I always try to trace the incident back to the original source, preferably to the actual eyewitness or newspaper report where the author got it from in the first place, and include a very detailed bibliography, which I find missing in most self-published Bigfoot books these days. And I'll admit I didn't put a bibliography in, but I did reference everything. So everything got footnoted where it came from. So kind of replaced the bibliography. So I didn't have to go back and, make a 10-page bibliography. And I did put an index.
Yeah, and the older source, I think Lyle had an important point, Hart. If you've got two conflicting sources of information on the same thing, go with the older one. The older book, the older article is more likely to be accurate, I think, than anything that's been published more recently. That's just,
Yeah. And another thing I think everybody should do is to remember when you get a fact from another, but you're using something from somebody else's work, remember to cite that. Yep. Give those people credit, because if you don't, you're telling the world, hey, this is my idea. Yep. I wrote this. This is the first time this has been read. You can't do that, folks.
Yeah.
Chris give him credit. Yeah,
Chris read my last book, and how many notes were in that book? How many citations were in that book?
Every sentence. No.
Well, not quite that bad. But.
No. But yeah, you cited your info, and it was really good. Really, I love that book, Steve. It was a really interesting topic, several topics, but. I want to tell you, you need to use a spell checker.
I do.
Okay, well, there was a lot of spell typos in there.
Yeah, that's a spell. Yeah.
I didn't like that. It could have been part of the printing process too.
Entirely possible.
But good book though.
Yeah, if there's typos in there, that document has been corrected up and down, left and right. like it went through the mill 5-6 times. So I don't necessarily know how that occurred.
Okay.
It happens. In my newest book, like I said, I had an editor, I had a proofreader, I read over through the manuscript, and still I had 2 typos that ended up in the final printed version. And I just don't know how it happened, because there were so many eyes on it, but it just slipped by all of us. So, as hard as you try, you might miss a couple.
I'd love to read all this work, especially of course, I'm a little bit partial here, but I love Steve's work. and when I'm reading through here and I'm like really getting into it, and then I see a typo, and I know, it's not Steve's fault. Okay. It should have been caught during the publishing or something. So I'm like, oh man, I hate that.
Oh,
but I love your book. So
yeah, when I send them, they're usually good to go. It aggravates the snot out of me that happens. Yeah. If actually I caught a typo in it myself, and I was really aggravated about it.
And I would like to propose an idea for all the writers and anybody from Hollywood that may be listening. Please do a movie or even a book about Albert Ostman. I would like to see a movie made of Albert Ostman's experience. Of course, get creative with the Hollywood stuff and, drag it out for an hour and a half, whatever you got to do. But I would love to see an Albert Ostman movie, and you could title it Ostman, and then show him get abducted, and I would love that.
But
who would you cast, Chris? Sorry, Steve. Who plays
Chris Bennett is Albert Ostman.
That's my question about both you guys. Who plays him? Pick an actor.
Giamatti, Paul Giamatti.
Brad Pitt.
Nah.
Let's see.
I think Paul Giamatti would be a good one.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. It wouldn't be a comedy. It needs to be like a serious deal.
Paul Giamatti can be very serious too. Have you ever seen John Adams?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Good
point. Good point.
No, I say we cast Ron Bowles as Albert Ostman. Now, here's my thing, and here we go. Well, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe, but I'm gonna put this. Hang on, I'm trying to get this with the.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I got it.
Oh, who is it?
We have to get Sam Elliott. We got to get Sam Elliott to be Osman.
What? Osman wasn't 165 years old when he was kidnapped.
Well, I mean, hey, Sam Elliott's still a young-looking guy, and he did really great on, the man who shot Hitler and the Bigfoot. It just the storyline there kind of jinxed him. But now Sam Elliott, I love that guy. He's a great actor, and I met him once over in Glasgow. He was a great guy. Unfortunately, I tried to contact him to see if we could get him on, but never heard anything from his publicist. So I guess I'm not important enough to call back, huh?
So here's my question, and that's a good idea. Maybe we can get John Kirk on the show because he's done a lot of extensive research on Osman.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your general thoughts on the Osman story?
Well, I defer to the people that interviewed him, which John Green, DeHinden, Ivan Sanderson, all of them felt like his narrative was very credible in terms of consistency, that he kept the facts pretty straight. He did sign a sworn affidavit, so he did take on some legal jeopardy in terms of what had happened to him. The troubling aspects, I think, were that, and I think John Kirk mentioned this to me, was that he claimed that when he came out of the woods that he used a certain mountain, I can't remember the name of the mountain, as a kind of guide to get home. And that particular mountain, he would not have been able to see from Toba Inlet. And also his timeline in terms of how long things took for him to travel a certain distance. Some of those things don't add up. But, that could be just human error in terms of, particularly after the incident, if he was all kind of freaked out and, hungry. The other weird thing, one of the credible things, and I talk about this in my book, is the way that he described, and I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a family show or not, but
no, go right ahead.
He described the old man, the biggest male Sasquatch, as having a tiny little 2-inch penis. And, that it's a very subtle thing, but if you think about it in terms of, if he were making up a story and, embellishing and doing this story, why would he not endow this particular 8-9 foot tall Sasquatch? You know what I'm saying? Why would he? So, I mean, that's kind of a weird thing. And of course, gorillas do have a smaller, member.
But they also have smaller feet.
Well, I'm the exact opposite, Ken. I believe that would probably.
Yes, Chris has big feet.
No, wait a minute. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about.
Sorry I went there, guys, but I mean.
Oh, that's okay.
No.
Makes this so fun.
I think that makes the story more credible because when we compare the anatomy of gorillas, okay, they're not known for, sex organ size, okay, and with that comparison being done with the Sasquatches, I believe that adds more credibility to the story. Now, if he came down and said, the old man was like a porn star or something, then that would, to me, that would send up a red flag.
John Holmes.
Well, maybe the old man went swimming. He's a little chilly.
It was cold.
He's always swimming. He's always swimming.
Let's not digress too much now. Come on.
All right. Okay. One last thing, and I don't want to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Ken,
I don't want to steal John Kirk's thunder on this in case you're going to have him on, but John Kirk did give me a piece of information that I put in my new Bigfoot book, which is that for years and years, the story has been that Albert Osman didn't talk about this abduction until Sasquatch started making the newspapers, right? He read the William Rowe account, and then he decided to come forward. Well, John Kirk, and you can ask him about this if you get him on the show, did some digging on Victoria Island and found that there are rumors and stories that Osman was actually talking about this abduction back in the 1940s, that he had met different logging crews and was talking about being abducted by a Sasquatch 20 years before So, I mean, if that's true, then that's another compelling piece of evidence, because this was long before Sasquatch was in the news, long before it was acceptable to talk about Sasquatch. Nevertheless, not to mention being kidnapped and abducted by Sasquatches. So if he was talking about this in the 40s, then that's pretty compelling.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, my only problem with the whole story is...
But that's a John Kirk question. He can give you the real dope on that.
My only problem with the story is that he had a loaded gun with him, but he chose snuff to use to get out of the situation. And to me, if you were that horrified and that scared and that traumatized, that you'd be like, first thing I'm doing is pulling my gun, I'm getting out of here. I'm not going to sit and play house with the Sasquatch for a few days. And that's the only thing that worries me.
Well, there
know.
were 4 of them, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot all 4 of them? Or how quick are you going to be able to do that? And
that was the thing. Yeah, that's what got me. How much ammo did he have with him? You don't really know. Maybe he had enough. Yeah. The gun was loaded. He had 3 or 4 shots.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that hey, this is life and death. I'm not going to sit there and not. If I feel like I'm going to be killed by something, well, you know what? If there's 4 of them and there's 1 of me, regardless if they're people or whatnot, and I know they're going to kill me, or I have a big doubt that they're going to kill me, I'm going to take as many as I can with me.
Right.
And maybe they'll run because they don't have a weapon.
But here's another thing, Steve.
What kind of gun? What kind of gun was it?
People that carry and that have been carrying when they've had a sighting, I know a lot of them is about. I had the same thought in my mind, I know a lot of other people had to have this thought too. When they see the size of this creature, that they, if it's a large male especially, you feel like a 5-year-old child standing next to their adult father. And you got to start wondering, do I have enough pistol or enough caliber here that I could actually stop that if I had to? And the answer in my mind was, I'm not sure. I'm not certain. I don't think so.
So just pull out the snuff.
Well, that being said, I'm a no-kill person, okay? But I do carry a weapon with me, not for Bigfoot, but if I was to be attacked by one, damn sure if I die, my weapon's going to be empty when they find the body.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. That's all.
No, Steve, I got another one. The fact that this is one of my big problems is not only did this Bigfoot pick up Ostman in his sleeping bag, but he also picked up Ostman's backpack full of all his snuff, coffee, sugar, salt, and brought that all along too. Yeah. So that seems a little bit, talk about good luck. Oh, dang, I was kidnapped by a Sasquatch, but at least he brought all my provisions with him. That seems a little bit
and
weird
the rifle
to me,
and the, Yeah.
Well, he had the rifle in the sleeping bag, supposedly.
Right.
With
That's
him.
kind of hard, though, to throw somebody over your shoulder. The gun doesn't bend.
Right.
So, it's like these questions that I had. And the devil's... I remember Dr. Meldrum saying to me, a lot of times the devil's in the details.
Well, if he's in a sleeping bag, the creature could actually... close the end of the bag and had it over his shoulder. So Osman's actually hanging down his back. That's possible. Like Santa Claus carrying a bag of toys, okay?
And the room goes silent.
So, I don't know. It's just like everything in the Bigfoot field. It's one of those controversial things, and you can make an argument either way.
We'll never know.
An amazing, elaborate hoax, or it's a remarkable story.
And personally, I like to just take it as a remarkable story and leave it at that, because there's really no way of proving anything with it. So let's just take it for what it is.
For me, I want to see a movie, okay?
Starring Chris Bennett as Al.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell.
Oh, no, I would not want to play Osman. No.
Will Ferrell could do a good job.
Why, Chris? You're no kill. You don't want to shoot it. You can give it some snuff.
No, but I wouldn't make it out, If I got
You know,
picked up like that,
it'll grab
for
you
real.
up. It'll grab you up in your sleeping bag with a 6-pack of ski. You're all good to go.
Oh yeah, we're good. As long as we got ski and something to eat, man.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm sorry for harping on this, but now some of the descriptions about them eating long, sweet grasses and stuff like that. Now that rings true. So unless Osman had some sort of experience with gorilla descriptions, at that time about what they eat and stuff, which I know he didn't. This stuff would be hard to make up. It really
especially
would.
in 1924.
Right. Yeah.
The beds, this was for a long time a red herring. Was he described that they had made these woven together, these kind of beds or mats out of different types of grass and hair and things, moss. It's interesting that his description of those Bigfoot Sasquatch nests that he's allegedly saw are very similar to the nests that have been described by the Olympic Project in recent years that they're finding up there in the Washington Peninsula. I thought that was kind of a weird coincidence when I read the description of those nests that they allegedly found and Osman's description. So.
Right.
And Sean Godet said, didn't he turn and fire a shot at the female? Not sure.
Yeah, he shot over the female's head. Yeah,
all right,
shot over her head. Yep.
Well, guess what? I'm beginning to see where okay, he did fire a shot, so I'm good with it. Yeah. I'm good with what he says. For now, it's just the provisions thing's a little strange, like Ken points out. But I'll tell you about that too. But
it's been years since I've read this, but from what I remember, what I recall, when he was making his escape, the female screamed at him and gave chase, and he turned around and fired
a shot.
A shot, or maybe a couple of shots. I can't remember, but he fired over her head, and that she changed her mind. Whoop.
Yeah, peace out.
So the story goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. So, out of what's your thoughts? Another one that I really find interesting, and the funny thing is, I saw. I don't know if it was the show about. There's a show on one of the networks about terror in the woods or something like that. And they did a show on the Bauman incident. And their recreation, they had Bauman fighting the Sasquatch. And I didn't recall reading that. He came back, found his buddy dead. He packed his stuff up and left.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they have all much more than that on this recreation. They totally did it a disservice. Made it sound even more remarkable than the story what it was. Thank you, Thomas. It was the Travel Channel. But, Bauman didn't fight the creature. And,
was this a movie or like in a documentary, Steve?
Yeah, it was like one of the shows where they do segments. And they did a segment on the Bauman, and they did a recreation. And they had Bauman sitting there telling Teddy Roosevelt in Montana the story of, they hear something, and then Bauman tells his story about, his thing.
Yeah.
And what I do know is that, Roosevelt did write about hearing something while on one of his hunting excursions.
Yes.
Which could have been very well Montana. Because he was an avid hunter, avid outdoors person. So they have Bauman telling the story, and then, as Bauman's telling the story, they do this recreation, and they actually had Bauman, shooting or something at the Sasquatch and stuff like that. It was completely. I'm like, they had it going good for a while, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, that never happened, and I felt that. Totally disservice. So what do you do with a show like that, with the rest of their recreations? What's real, what's not? Totally disappointing.
Yeah, well, that's TV for you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so, they have
those of us that have had been fortunate to be involved in that,
it's just
they have a large level of creativity going on there, and a lot of stuff they add on is for entertainment purposes.
That's
Well,
what it was. True Terror with Robert Englund.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
it was. Yep.
It's the bottom
Oh.
line.
That's what it
Oh.
was. It wasn't the
Okay,
one,
yeah.
the one with the terror in
Yeah.
the woods. That they actually have a lot of the people that experience stuff talk about the stuff as they recreate it. So that show seems a little different. But this, and after watching that segment, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit there and watch this. Now I don't want to watch it anymore because I don't know how true it is. Yeah, it's amazing that, I remember people saying, and I know, Ken, we're going to let you go in a few minutes because I know you got stuff to do. So we're gonna kick the show off a little early tonight, probably about 10:45, but we're gonna let Ken go at 10:30. But I remember years ago people say, "Well, it must be true. It's on the internet." Now you can't find a good source on just about anything, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's just becoming, it's making all of our jobs harder, but there's just so much misinformation floating around out there. And that was kind of one of the reasons I decided to write my new book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot, was not that I view myself as the all-knowing expert,
Right.
but what I wanted to do was to incorporate all of the best information from multiple sources, and those sources are typically, the iconic researchers in our field that have spent, years and decades investigating and researching. And a lot of that information, just like we were talking about the TV shows, when people are writing web articles and making YouTube videos, they want to add their own little bit of flair or dramatic element to a story, and they're fundamentally changing the facts. And then somebody sees that, and then they get it stuck in their head, and it's, so it's becoming a challenge, but look for good resources, good information.
Yep. And it was Winston Churchill that once said, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on.
That's a good one.
I love that comment.
That's a good one.
But anyway, Ken, any projects you want to plug? You want to plug your appearances again real quick, and we'll let you get on with your night. And I appreciate you coming on so much and hanging out with us for the last hour and a half.
Guys, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure and an honor to speak with you both. Again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We love you. We need you. Let your kids grow up to be Bigfoot researchers if you can tolerate that. I'm working on a new book. I don't feel like I'm at a point where I want to disclose that yet, but I'm excited about it. And it's definitely regarding an iconic cryptid that I think a lot of people will be interested in. And other than that, I'm just promoting the new Bigfoot book. The Essential Guide to Bigfoot is available on Amazon. I've got an audiobook version coming soon, and we just launched a Kindle digital book version through Beyond the Fray Publishing. In addition to that, I'll be at some Bigfoot conferences later this year. Again, I'm going to be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in July. In August, I'll be at the UP Michigan Bigfoot Conference. In October, I'll be at the Hanobi Bigfoot Festival in Oklahoma, and also the Texas Bigfoot Conference. Oh, and the Fouke Monster Festival, Fouke, Arkansas, on August 1st. So hopefully some of you folks are getting stir crazy out there, and it sounds like some of these events are going to happen. So hopefully we can make it happen.
And Mick wanted to throw you a line that says you're invited to this great Squatch Detective conga line starting at Chris's house. So
sounds like fun.
All right, Ken. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, my brother. And you be safe here. Be safe out there. I know you guys should be coming out of lockdown pretty soon.
We're starting to here in Texas a little bit. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, my heart goes out to all of your listeners out there. I mean, it's been tough on everybody, but it's like we woke up one day and we were living in a science fiction movie. So here we are, and we're making it through.
Very, very weird science fiction movie too. One that I did not sign up for. So, all right, Ken, have a great night, my brother. You take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, guys. Take care, everyone. Bye.
And that was Ken. Thank you, Ken, for coming on tonight. And
Great guest. Love when we have Ken on.
Yep, it's always a lot of fun.
Oh,
and
man, I wish we could talk about that new book though.
Well, got to save some stuff for a repeat visit. There's a couple of I want to get John Kirk on, and I want to get Tom Steenberg is going to come back on too, and we're going to be talking about Jacko, and we're going to be talking about some of his investigations. And you want to talk about a guy, Tom Steenberg. I love Tom. Talks about he knew John Green very well. He knew Renee DeHinden very well. There's going to be some gold in there. Anytime you talk to a man that's had so much, you're talking 20 years before me doing this stuff, or 15 years before me. Tom keeps telling you, I'm not as old as people think I am. But so anyway, now's the time to pitch our show for next week as well, because next week, and I'm sure we can. I know Ken had some stuff to do. He said he would stay on, but I said I would, I'd cut him a little early so we can get it. We need it done. But coming next week, and I'm sure we can convince this guy to stay on the entire 2 hours. Is going to be Mr. Eric Altman. Is next week.
Eric!
So first time on the video format. Eric will be returning with us next week for the video format, and I'll be working on the following week's guest this week. So I can't tell you who's on the 24th, but I'm sure we'll get somebody fun. But there's a lot of stuff coming up too. Tomorrow is Monday, starts the new week. There'll be I've been adding a lot of videos to the YouTube channel. I think we're up to 60 videos now on the YouTube channel between, this is show number, I believe this is 29 for the Squatch-D TV. There's about a dozen or so Squatch-D radio episodes on there since we started the channel. And I've actually migrated a lot of the videos from the old channel over to this one. So, there's a lot of stuff on there. Check it out. Please subscribe, like, share, all that fun stuff. Hit the little notification bell. There, I beat you to it, Chris.
We thank you for your support.
Yes, please. We were trying to, and the reason why we're trying so hard is we do want to start a community with this channel. And there's a lot of other little perks and stuff we can do. And it's not about necessarily making money, because really, what am I making pennies an episode? Don't care about that. Never have, never will. This is about good research, and we like having a good subscriber base.
Yeah.
So,
if you guys will hit the like and subscribe, it'll help us out with when they do the search results. It helps us pop up closer to the top. So we really appreciate that. Yep. It's not like, Steve is going to be a multimillionaire because you clicked that. No.
But we do want to get those subscriptions up there so we can qualify for what they call the next level. It's the monetization level, but I'm not really worried about the monetization. It's the community. It's being able to embed links into the show so you can click to the websites that we talk about and stuff like that at a later. Like if we're talking about Ken's book, and I can put a link to that book in that field, and you can click on that and go right to the book. So that's some of the things we want to do. We like these enhancements. So we want these enhancements, I should say. So, and, if anybody wants to check it out, we do have a Patreon page, too, because once we hit that big mark, we're going to start doing a lot more stuff. So, Chris, it's been a great week. I hope, COVID-19 has been a real pain in the ass.
A lot of people are starting to get stir crazy. I've noticed, I try not to watch the news, but my wife watches news 24/7, so I have no choice if I walk by the TV. But now you see people are really upset because they want to get out and they want to get out of the house, and I don't blame them. I'm that way too. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of time inside the house the last 3 years anyway, but I can't imagine being taken away from going out every day and doing your job, and it's difficult. It's got to be, and just everybody hang in there, do the best you can.
Well, I've been watching the news very carefully. It doesn't look like my company's maybe coming back.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Not good.
It's still a big question mark whether or not we're coming back anytime soon. And it's not because of COVID-19. It's because of what COVID-19 did to the business. So
Right.
it is what it is. What it is. It just gives me more time to do this, I guess, for a little while.
Well, once the economy gets started, back going, we're gonna be banging out, all kinds of new products and stuff. So maybe
Thomas Connolly, another New York, especially with this great New York spring weather. Chris,
yeah, well,
you know what I saw yesterday?
what?
Snow.
What?
Snow.
Dude.
Yeah, it snowed on and off yesterday. Nothing ever really accumulated. It's all gone now. But it was snowing. I looked out the window and, oh my God, it's snowing. It's
In
9th.
May.
It was
Yeah.
May 9th, and it was snowing. And
Oh,
we
dude.
have a freeze warning tonight. But luckily, next week it gets a little warmer. So, yeah.
Well, I've been trying to understand you a little bit better, Steve. So what I've been doing is watching episodes of The Sopranos on HBO now, and I think I understand. It's about like how I thought it was, up there around New Jersey, New York. It's a little different. I mean, of course, if you would like to learn more about how we live here in Kentucky, you could watch the RFD channel, RFD TV, Rural Farm, and episodes of Green Acres. But no, I really have, back when it was on. Okay, I would watch an episode of The Sopranos every now and then, and I really wasn't that into it because it's like a soap opera. You can't jump in the middle. You have to start at the beginning, learn who all the characters are, and why it's important that this guy got shot, and why you should care or you shouldn't care.
You see, Chris still hasn't got the lingo down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He didn't get shot. He got knocked off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I gotta say, I did watch it, and I have watched it all the way through now. I mean, not at one go, but over the period of the last few weeks, I've watched it all the way through, and I really did enjoy it. It was.
Have you seen The Godfather?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You're there. You're there. So anyway, next week, what to look for this week? Well, if I get around to it, I have a thermal video or some thermal pictures from an expedition back in 2013. Going to be posting a video on that this week. I'm going to be doing another video blog. Since, now that you mention it, somebody doesn't want to debate and they want to still make excuses on YouTube and still try to put out senseless nonsense. There will be a video blog this week, and in response to some of the trolling nature of some people, that they can't give me any reasons to fight my argument, so they throw insults, and guess what? They don't make it to the page, because I encourage everybody to write comments. If you want to argue a point, please do so, but don't sit there and try to be. Don't try to call me son, because I'm probably much older than you, more than you think. Don't throw names at me, because you know what I do with those? They go right into the delete button. Gone. But there was one gentleman that actually wanted to talk to, that actually asked, made some points, and I counterpointed him, and I thanked him for not, being a troll, for saying it respectfully, because we can have a respectful argument.
Sure.
Right. But when somebody sits there and accuses moi of giving them a heart attack, and I'm giving him a heart attack, but refuses to debate me or Steenberg, and then post 2 more videos about the topic this week, I ain't giving him a heart attack. He's giving himself a heart attack. So if he thinks I'm not going to rebut those, sorry.
Well, having a difference of opinion is fine, and we should be able to debate that.
Yep.
It's just like there's no one side right, one side wrong. I mean, everybody can meet in the middle, and you don't have to choose. You don't have to pick sides. We're not enemies. Okay, if you have a different opinion, we can talk about it, and we can explain to you why we have our opinion.
So it's time for a quick round of Ask the Audience.
Oh, good.
So here it is. You're definitely younger than me, Steve, but I still love you. Okay, Mick, throw your age out there.
Oh, Mick put out their recommendation too. Crime dramas, I guess, specifically Hotel de Luna. Oh, Hotel de Luna. I'm about to look for that.
Yep.
But I started watching these crime dramas. It's pretty cool. I like it. Really different.
I tend to go a lot of. My favorite channel is Investigation Discovery.
Oh God, my wife watches this all the time.
And
Forensic Files, right?
I like the See No Evil, and then Oxygen has a lot of good shows on it. The DNA of Murder with Paul Holes, that's a really good one. And the other crime shows I like watching is See No Evil, which is on Investigate. I'm trying to think what else. The other one I watched, The Murder Tapes, and I think that's on Investigation Discovery, which covers the whole investigation via the body cams, which is really
right. Cool. Well, my wife likes to watch the Forensic Files because she goes to sleep while that's playing, and a lot of times I'll go in there, hey, what's on? And it's a show about some woman that has killed her husband, and I'm like,
she's taking notes.
Why would anybody want to watch this? Why do you want to watch this?
Yep. And of course, John Swan mentioned Joe Kenda. My. That's actually John. That's there you go, John. Poor John was trying so hard. The autocorrect was going on. I can see that. We love you, John. All right, folks. Well, what more can I say? Just keep an eye out for the channel this week. I'm sure there'll be more videos. We can't do this without you. Please hit subscribe. And a big thing, too, I'm going to ask all you guys to do is share. Get a video, share it. Share it. Maybe we'll get some more subscribers off some of your friends, too. But anyway, Chris, any final words tonight?
Well, are we heading out? Because I had a question for you, Steve.
Oh, well, go right ahead then.
It had to do with writing, which is basically some of the same stuff I was asking Ken earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about when you start writing? Do you just get like, I don't know, inspired and start doing this, or do you treat it as a job like, Ken did, like where you sit down and say, I'm going to write this, or do you need like a certain inspiration and like, bam, hey, I'm going to write this?
For me, it's time, because, before this, I was a pretty busy guy.
Right.
At one time I had 2 full-time jobs, working a business, building a business. Now, everything's kind of shut down because of COVID. But, a few months ago, I really knuckled down, and I had a lot of, I kind of write in spurts. Okay, let me do this, let me do this, and let me do this. And then I got another idea, so I wrote some more, and then I kind of conjoined both of them, and then I wrote some more to round it out to make it all flow.
Right.
And, so that's how I tend to put the chapters together by pieces. So, I don't necessarily go, okay, I'm going to write a book A to Z. I write a book, okay, I want to write about this topic. I want to write about that topic. I want to write about that topic. And then I put them together. And that's how I do a lot of it. And then you run your spell checkers a gazillion times. I don't know how many times those things get spell checked, like hundreds of times. I finish a segment, spell check it. So I don't know why or how those typos are getting in there.
It's got to be the printer. It's got to be.
It's got to be some kind of process they're using. But so that's the process I go through, and when I really put my mind to it, a book I can write a book probably within a month and a half, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
When I really want to.
But all those freaking when you got to do your footnotes and stuff, man, that's got to be a nightmare.
Piece of cake.
Okay.
Because as I write, I research. I have a thought, then I start
Right.
researching it, and I start putting my thoughts together. I start citing different things. And, Microsoft Word has this wonderful thing, a little feature that says insert note. And then I can just put my reference right there, and it auto numbers it, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So it's really not that hard to do. What's hard to do is a bibliography. I don't do a bibliography for the simple fact is even Lyle said that, that's all good too. I keep, notes to every reference on the page. So you can read the references right there on the page of the text. I don't need to go into a bibliography because that's just only going to increase the printing costs. What I did do this time, though, was I did include an index of figures, which is all the pictures and stuff like that. So somebody says, I saw that chart there or that picture there. Let me look it up. And then go to the back of the book and say, oh, there it is. And then go to the right page. Yeah. That's the only thing I did differently this time and I always insert citations and stuff. I didn't do that many for 50 large because a lot of that stuff was coming from me firsthand.
Yeah.
That was all me firsthand.
You were the footnote.
I was a footnote. I was at ground zero. I was the first-hand witness.
Yeah.
What would Sasquatch do? There were some footnotes in there too.
Oh, great book. Love it.
But there was a lot that wasn't because a lot of that was first-hand experience too.
Yeah.
And then finally, the Sasquatch Playbook had a ton of footnotes because I was taking some of these classic things and looking at them from a different viewpoint. And, I think that's important. And,
that's the thing. This last book is a lot about humans, and a lot about human behavior and psychology. Yeah, I thought it was fascinating.
Yep. Nick says, you use MS Word. Steve, kudos. Yeah, I do. I have the complete Microsoft Office suite that I use. But just to catch up, I will be doing a live video blog this week. It'll probably be either Monday or Tuesday. Not quite sure exactly when or what time, but stay tuned for the Facebook page, and I'll try to get it out to any of our YouTubers that also keep an eye on with me with Facebook. See, one of the things I can't do right now on Facebook is make a post, which you can do once you hit that number. You can go to your community, hit a post, say, hey, we're going to be doing a V-blog tonight at blah, blah, blah. Can't do that right now. So anyway.
Okay. All right, man. I'm sorry. That's all I had. We could go on all night about this because this is a subject I'm interested in.
Well, you got another question? Fire away.
That's it. We're done.
We technically we have 15 minutes left to show, 13 minutes left to show. So if you got something else, we can. We still got people watching.
When you do the publishing part, is all that done online? I mean, do you actually have to take a physical copy somewhere, or do you send it?
It's all electronically transmitted.
Huh.
And then they assign me my ISBN number and my UPC number, and I set the prices up, and I set the covers up and everything. Send that out because those covers are done by me too.
Right.
And within 24 hours, usually it goes live.
Yeah, I noticed. I mean, it was just a few days after you had finished it when it first went up on Amazon. Of course, I ordered it as soon as I could. And I was like, the book got here. I'm like, damn, I'm holding in my hand what Steve just finished, last week.
Yep.
It's amazing,
Yeah, it is. It is. Mick asked the question: do I use a Word template or I start from a blank Word doc? Well, I use a template to my I get the templates from the publisher, which is I do use Amazon. So Kindle Direct. So I get the template from them, and usually what I do is, here, I'll pull it up. I do a 6x9 book, so it's big enough, but it's not like a tiny book. And then what I do is, here's some examples of the book and everything. I can insert pictures in there, but what it does is it automatically formats that. It shifts on page 1 all the stuff to the right margin lengths. So when they go up, when the book it doesn't have to be formatted. It's already been pre-formatted. So if you haven't got this book, I actually think it's kind of a cool book. It's got a lot.
I like the pictures too.
I know you can sit there and look at pictures all day.
I wish you could have added like a color by number section in there. That would have been good for me.
Well, I print. I print in black and white because it's cheaper. The color, you get a free color copy. You get a free color cover, but it would increase the cost of that.
No. Okay. Color by numbers. Color by numbers.
Oh yeah, we could. Maybe
the Bigfoot is brown, and then the
Squatch
blue.
Detective, the Squatch Detective paint by numbers book.
That would work, yes.
We have a picture of you up there on the show. We'll just take like a snapshot of you.
Yeah, wonderful.
You can color in Chris. Maybe give him a black beard instead of the gray one.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want a picture of this mug hanging up in their living room, right?
That's right. And you can or maybe even a color form box. We can do Squatch Detective color form. You can put you can put like glasses or an eye patch on you or me.
Put hair on Chris.
Put hair on me. Put hair on me. Do anything. Or you can, I was going to say you can put hair on Radford, but he hasn't got any hair either. Or take hair off of Radford, but he hasn't got it. Who was a guest we had that has had hair?
That's one of the things I never notice. I never look at. I'm sorry.
Who was the last guest? Oh, Jay Bachochin. Yeah, you could shave Jay Bachochin bald or Edward Monge or any of those guys. We could just shave them bald. And so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Isn't that funny? I mean, hair is something that I don't notice.
Well, it's kind of like my comb. I never part with it.
Oh, God. That was horrible.
That'll be funny. But true.
Yeah.
It's sad, but true. Okay, folks. Well, on behalf of me and Chris, we're going to kick off here. Keep an eye out on the channel this week. So sure to be some fun coming out this week. But anyway, we will catch you all next week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, with our special guest from Pennsylvania, head of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoological Society, Mr. Eric Altman. So, everybody, have a good night. Catch you all next week.
Night, folks.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless, and keep on squatching.